Hello friends again, welcome back to Shadows of Revenge. First of all, tell me, where are you from the world watching my video? This is a true story, so watch till end. My name is Jack Coleman. The bus doors folded open with a tired hiss, like lungs that had worked too long without rest. Cold air rushed in, sharp and metallic, carrying the smell of wet pavement and exhaust. I stepped aboard with the careful balance of a man who had learned, over years, to take up as little space as possible. In my right hand was a paper bag, folded twice at the top, the grease already darkening the thin brown paper. Inside it was a sandwich I had made that morning, my son's favorite. Meatloaf, sliced thick, wrapped the same way I used to wrap it when his legs barely reached the floor and his whole world fit inside a kitchen chair. I checked my watch as I fed my fare into the slot. 2:25. My meeting with Douglas wasn't until 5, but I'd left early on purpose. Early arrivals leave room for hope. They leave space for conversations that aren't rushed, for memories to slip back into the cracks where silence has settled. Maybe we'd sit somewhere. Maybe he'd laugh when he saw the sandwich. Maybe, just for a moment, he'd remember the man I used to be to him. The bus was already full. Every seat taken. People pressed together in that quiet, practiced way city commuters do. Eyes down, shoulders angled. Everyone pretending they were alone. I moved toward the back, gripping a metal pole, steadying myself as the bus lurched forward. The windows rattled softly, the sound swallowed by the low hum of traffic and the occasional cough or sigh. Near the front, the blue-marked priority seats were occupied, one of them by a young man no older than 22, maybe 23. He was sprawled across the bench like he owned it, expensive sneakers stretched out, knees wide, white earbuds tucked deep in his ears. His jacket was new, clean, the kind that didn't smell like the weather yet. He nodded along to music only he could hear, completely detached from the world he was taking up space in. I didn't think much of it then. People stop noticing things when they ride buses long enough. You learn to lower your expectations. I found my footing and stared out the window as we pulled away from Upham's Corner Station, the city sliding past in gray blurs. I thought about Douglas, about how tall he'd gotten, about the last time we'd really talked, not exchanged clipped sentences over the phone. I tightened my grip on the bag, as if it could anchor me to a different version of the day. 3 stops later, the bus slowed again. The doors opened, and an old man stepped up onto the first stair. He moved carefully, like every inch cost him something. He had to be 80 at least. His coat hung loose on his frame, threadbare at the elbows, the fabric rubbed thin by years of use. His shoes were split at the seams, the leather cracked and tired, and despite the January cold, he wore no gloves. His hands were bare, red, trembling slightly as he gripped the rail and hauled himself up step by step, breathing hard with the effort. The bus was still full. No one moved. He paused at the top, scanning the seats, his eyes passing over faces that didn't look back. He took a step toward the priority section and leaned slightly toward the young man with the earbuds. "Excuse me, son," he said, his voice polite, worn smooth by age. "Would you mind?" The young man didn't react, didn't even flinch. He nodded faintly to his music, eyes glued to something glowing in his hand. The old man tried again. "Excuse me," he said, a little louder this time. "Nothing." I felt something twist in my chest. Not anger yet. More like a dull ache I'd learned to recognize. The ache of watching people pretend they don't see. "Hey," I called out, my voice cutting through the bus's low rumble. "That's priority seating." The young man sighed dramatically and pulled one earbud out. He glanced at me, then at the old man, his expression flat, mildly annoyed, like he'd been interrupted during something important. "What?" he said. "Would you give up your seat for him?" I asked, nodding toward the old man. He shrugged. "I'm good," he said, sliding the earbud back in as if that settled it. The bus had a yellow light and surged forward. The sudden movement sent everyone swaying. The old man stumbled, his hand shooting out for the rail. He missed it by inches. His body tipped forward, gravity taking over, and for one horrible second, I saw him falling, saw his head cracking against the metal pole, saw an ending no one else on the bus seemed prepared to prevent. I dropped my bag without thinking. My hand closed around his elbow, just in time, my other arm bracing his chest. The impact jolted through my shoulder, sharp and sudden, but I held. He clutched my sleeve, gasping, his breath coming in short, frightened bursts. "I've got you," I said, my voice louder than I meant it to be. "I've got you." He steadied, leaning into me until the bus slowed again. His grip tightened, then loosened as he found his balance. He looked up at me, eyes pale blue, wide with shock. "Thank you," he said quietly. I nodded, my heart still pounding. Then I turned back toward the young man, who hadn't moved an inch. "That's enough," I said. "Get up." He rolled his eyes and didn't bother taking out the earbud this time. "I'm not," he muttered. Something snapped inside me. Not loudly, not violently, just enough. "He almost fell," I said. "He could have cracked his skull." The young man shrugged again, dismissive. I reached into my pocket and pulled out my phone, raising it so he could see the screen light up. "If you don't stand up right now," I said, my voice steady, "I'm recording this and posting it. Let everyone see who refuses to give up a priority seat to an 80-year-old man." That did it. His head jerked up. He glanced at my phone, then around the bus. A few other passengers were watching now, some with their own phones half raised, curiosity finally pried loose by the threat of exposure. "Whatever," he muttered, standing abruptly. He shoved his bag over his shoulder and pushed past me toward the back, bumping my arm hard enough to sting. I didn't react. I just turned back to the old man and gestured to the empty seat. "Please," I said. He lowered himself into it slowly, releasing a long breath as he settled. His shoulders sagged, the tension draining out of him. "Thank you," he said again. "Truly." I bent down and picked up my paper bag. The sandwich was still intact, thank God. I moved into the space the young man had vacated, gripping the pole as the bus continued on its way. For a moment, everything went quiet again. The bus returned to its hum. People went back to their screens, their thoughts, their chosen blindness. But the old man didn't. He looked up at me, not just glanced, but really looked. His eyes held something I hadn't expected. Respect, maybe, or recognition. Like he'd seen something familiar in me. "Not many people would do that," he said. "Stand up for a stranger." I shrugged, suddenly aware of how tired I felt. My dad taught me to speak up when something's wrong. He smiled at that, but there was something else in it, too. Something thoughtful. His gaze lingered on my face, like this moment mattered more than either of us realized. The bus rolled on toward downtown. I stared out the window, the city sliding by in muted colors, my thoughts drifting back to Douglas. To the meeting. To the papers he wanted me to sign. To the house. I didn't notice how often the old man glanced at me. Didn't catch the strange glint in his eyes, like someone standing at the edge of a decision. All I felt was the weight of the day pressing down on me, heavier than it had any right to be. It was just a bus ride, just a seat, just a stranger. Or at least, that's what I thought. The bus rattled through traffic, stopping and starting, the rhythm almost hypnotic. After a while, the old man spoke again. "What's in the bag, if you don't mind me asking?" I looked down at it, then back at him. "Meatloaf sandwich," I said. "My son's favorite. Has been since he was a boy." His expression softened. "He's a lucky man," he said, "to have a father like you." I let out a small, humorless breath. "Lucky," I repeated. If only he knew. I told him how I used to make it every Sunday. How Douglas would eat it in 3 bites and ask for more. How long ago that felt now. "But you still remember," the old man said quietly. "That means something." The bus stopped again. More people got on. More people got off. I found myself talking more than I meant to, words spilling out the way they sometimes do when you think you're speaking to someone who doesn't matter, someone who won't carry your story anywhere important. "I'm meeting him this afternoon," I said. 5 o'clock. At his office downtown. "Oh." The old man's eyes sharpened slightly. "What does he do?" "He's a lawyer," I said, a flicker of pride sneaking into my voice despite everything. "Commonwealth law firm." Something passed across his face then, so fast I almost missed it. A flicker. Recognition, maybe. But when he spoke, his tone was neutral. "That's quite prestigious." "He worked hard," I said. "I'm proud of him." I hesitated, then added, "He wants me to sign some papers today. Property papers." "And will you?" the old man asked. I stared out the window, watching a line of cars crawl through an intersection. "I don't know," I said honestly. "He's a lawyer. He knows all the angles. I'm just his father." The old man was quiet for a moment. When he spoke again, his voice was firmer. "A father's love is priceless," he said. Never let anyone tell you otherwise. The bus slowed. The driver called out the next stop. Downtown crossing. I checked my watch. 3:10. The old man rose from his seat, gripping the rail. I reached out automatically to help him. "Thank you, son," he said. "Where are you headed?" I asked as we moved toward the door. He smiled, something knowing in the curve of his mouth. "Where are you going?" "Commonwealth Law Firm," I said. "One financial center." "What a coincidence," he replied softly. "So am I." The doors opened. Cold air rushed in again. We stepped off the bus together, two strangers walking into something neither of us had fully named yet. And as we moved toward the heart of the city, I had no idea that the seat no one wanted had just set everything in motion. The city swallowed us the moment we stepped off the bus. Downtown crossing pulsed with movement, shoes striking pavement in sharp rhythms, engines growling impatiently at red lights, voices colliding and dissolving into noise. Glass towers loomed overhead, their reflective skins catching the pale winter light, turning the sky into fractured silver. I walked beside the old man, clutching my paper bag, feeling like I had wandered into a world that wasn't meant for people like me. He moved through it all with surprising ease. His pace was slow, but steady, his posture upright despite the years etched into his body. He didn't rush, didn't hesitate. He walked as if these streets remembered him, even if no one else did. "This way," I said, gesturing toward the cluster of high-rises ahead. We fell into step together. People flowed around us, suits and coats brushing past, briefcases swinging like extensions of their arms. I kept my eyes forward, but my mind drifted backward, pulled by memories that had been waiting for just the right moment to surface. The old man was talking about the weather, something about how winters used to be harsher, but his words faded into the background as the past crept in, uninvited and relentless. 25 years earlier, I was 37 years old and exhausted in a way that sleep never fixed. Douglas was 9 then, small for his age, all elbows and questions, with eyes that followed me everywhere I went. We lived in a single room in Dorchester, 200 square feet, if you were generous. A hot plate in the corner, a bathroom down the hall we shared with 3 other families. Douglas slept on a pull-out couch. I slept on the floor. Every morning at 5, my alarm went off. I'd roll onto my side, careful not to wake him, and start the day. Breakfast was simple: toast, eggs when I could afford them. I'd walk him to school, his small hand wrapped around mine, his backpack nearly as big as his torso. Then I'd head to whatever carpentry job I'd managed to line up. Some days it was framing, some days repairs, some days nothing at all. The money was never enough. It slipped through my fingers like water, swallowed by rent and food and bus fares. But I kept going, because quitting wasn't an option when a child depended on you to believe in tomorrow. Then one afternoon, I saw it. Number 47, Dorchester Avenue. The house wasn't much to look at. The paint was peeling, the porch sagged slightly, and the roof looked like it had seen better decades. But it had 2 bedrooms, a real kitchen, a yard, a place where a boy could ride a bike without dodging traffic. The price was $180,000. I didn't have it, not even close. But for the first time in a long while, I had something else. Hope. I sold my pickup truck for $8,000. Borrowed from coworkers who barely had enough themselves. Took on a second job, then a third. I worked 18-hour days, 7 days a week, for 6 straight months. My hands split and bled. My back screamed at night. I ate standing up, slept in fragments, lived on coffee and stubbornness. When I finally scraped together the down payment, $36,000, 20%, I walked into the bank with shaking hands and a heart full of prayer. They said no. My income was too low, too unstable. I tried another bank. Same answer. And another. By the third rejection, I was ready to give up. I stood in the real estate office, staring at the floor, feeling like I'd failed before I'd even started. That's when the agent spoke up. "Put in your son's name," she said. "Easier for inheritance. You make the payments, he gets the deed. It's what families do." It sounded reasonable, logical, harmless. Douglas was my blood, my boy, the one person in the world I trusted without question. So I agreed. I signed the papers. $647 a month for 25 years. I never missed a payment. Not once. Not when work dried up. Not when I was sick. Not when everything in me wanted a rest. I fixed the roof myself. Painted the walls. Planted grass in the yard. Douglas grew up there. He did his homework at the kitchen table. Learned to ride a bike in the driveway. Graduated high school on the front porch, smiling so wide it hurt to look at him. When he got into college, I worked harder. Paid his tuition, his books, his rent. When he got into law school, I felt like I'd won the lottery. He graduated with honors. He became a lawyer. I was so proud I could barely breathe. But somewhere along the way, things changed. The calls got shorter. The visits stopped. Last Christmas, he didn't come home. And this morning, a text had lit up my phone. Meet me at 5. Sign the papers and go. The house was worth $420,000 now. Douglas wanted it officially in his name. He was offering me $15,000. $15,000 for 25 years of my life. I stared at that message for an hour. Then I made his favorite sandwich and decided to show up early. Maybe he'd remember. We stopped walking. I blinked, pulled back into the present by the old man's voice. Mr. Coleman. I looked up. One financial center towered over us, glass and steel piercing the gray sky. 28 stories. Commonwealth law firm occupied the top floor. This was it. I tightened my grip on the paper bag, suddenly aware of how small I felt. The old man stood beside me, studying the building with quiet interest, as if it were just another structure among many. The marble lobby inside was designed to intimidate, and it succeeded. Polished floors reflected everything back at you, warped and distorted. Crystal chandeliers hung overhead, cold and perfect. Portraits lined the walls. Men in robes and tailored suits, faces carved into permanence by money and power. I felt out of place the moment I stepped inside. The old man didn't. He looked around calmly, almost fondly, as if recognizing old acquaintances. At the reception desk sat a young woman with immaculate hair and an expensive suit. Her nameplate read Rachel Bennett. She looked up, her professional smile faltering the moment she saw me. "Can I help you?" she asked. "I'm here to see Douglas Coleman," I said. "I'm his father." Her eyes widened. She picked up the phone. Before she could dial, a man in a tailored suit walked past, slick hair, confident stride. Austin Reynolds, one of Douglas's colleagues. He glanced at me, then at the paper bag, his mouth twisting. "Who's the old guy?" he said loudly. "Looks lost." Rachel hesitated. "He says he's Douglas Coleman's father." Austin froze, pulled out his phone. "Boss." "Yeah, your dad's here." In the lobby, holding a paper bag. I waited. 10 minutes passed. Every second stretched thin. Then the elevator doors opened. Douglas stepped out. My son, 34 years old. Perfect suit. Perfect hair. Shoes that probably cost more than my rent used to. He belonged here. He saw me, and his jaw tightened. "What are you doing here?" he hissed, grabbing my arm and pulling me aside. I said 5. "I was worried about traffic," I said. "I made this for you." He recoiled like I'd offered him something rotten. "I don't want that." "Douglas, please." "No," he pushed the bag away. "You're embarrassing me." The words hit harder than anything else that day. And across the lobby, the old man watched. His expression had changed. The kindness was gone. What remained was something colder, sharper, like a judge who had just heard enough. Douglas didn't bother lowering his voice. "Do you have any idea where you are right now?" he snapped, his fingers digging into my arm hard enough to hurt. "This is Commonwealth Law Firm, the most prestigious firm in Boston." People nearby slowed their steps. Conversations softened. Eyes turned. "My colleagues are watching," he continued, his voice sharp, frantic. "My boss could walk through that door any second, and here you are standing in the lobby with a paper bag like some." He stopped himself, jaw tightening. "Douglas," I said quietly, my throat burning. "I just want to talk." "There is nothing to talk about," he said. "You were supposed to come at 5. Sign the papers. Leave." That was the deal. I held the bag up slightly, my hand trembling despite my effort to steady it. "I made your favorite. I thought maybe—" "I don't want it," he snapped. "I don't want your charity." The word charity landed like a slap. "I'm your father," I whispered. He leaned closer, his voice dropping but somehow cutting deeper. "You're embarrassing me." The lobby seemed to shrink around us. Rachel stared at her computer screen like it might save her. Austin smirked openly now, arms crossed. A few other employees had stopped pretending they weren't watching. I stood there, 62 years old, holding a sandwich no one wanted, feeling smaller than I ever had in my life. Douglas pulled a folder from under his arm and shoved it into my chest. The impact wasn't hard, but it knocked the air out of me anyway. "Sign it," he said. "Take the 15,000 and disappear." My hand shook as I opened the folder. The words blurred on the page. "But I paid for that house," I said. 25 years. Every month. I never missed a payment." "That was your choice," he snapped. "Nobody forced you. I did it for you. And I never asked you to," he shouted. His voice echoed off marble and glass, too loud now to pretend this was private. Heads turned fully. The lobby had gone silent except for him. "You know what it was like growing up like that?" Douglas continued, years of resentment spilling out unchecked. "The poor kid, the one whose dad showed up smelling like sawdust, lunch wrapped in aluminum foil. I worked twice as hard as everyone else to escape that. I felt tears burn my eyes. Everything I did was for you. And I paid for it," he said bitterly. "With embarrassment. With shame." The old man stepped forward. "That's enough," he said calmly. Douglas spun around. "Who the hell are you?" Austin moved closer, puffing his chest. "Sir, this is a private firm." I asked him a question. Douglas snapped, pointing at the old man. "Another one of his beggar friends?" The old man didn't flinch. "I'm just someone who saw something extraordinary today." Douglas laughed, harsh and hollow. "Extraordinary? You want extraordinary? I've carried this burden for 34 years. He turned back to me. "That house is worth $420,000 now. You want to stay? Pay me $3,000 a month in rent. Otherwise, sign and go." "3,000. I whispered. "I can't." "Then sign," he roared. The old man stepped between us. "Security," Douglas shouted. "Get these bums out of here. Call the police if you have to." The lobby froze. And then the elevator chimed. A man stepped out. Gray suit, silver hair, leather briefcase. His presence shifted the air immediately. Patrick Westfield, managing partner. He took in the scene in seconds. Douglas, red-faced and furious. Me, clutching a paper bag. Austin with his phone. Rachel frozen at her desk. And the old man. Patrick's face drained of color. His briefcase slipped from his hand and cracked against the marble floor. "Judge," he whispered. The word rippled through the lobby like electricity. "Judge Fairchild." Silence swallowed everything. Patrick walked forward and bowed. Actually bowed. "Your Honor, I didn't know you were visiting today." The old man smiled faintly. "Hello, Patrick." Austin's phone clattered to the floor. Douglas stared, confused, terrified. "What's going on?" Douglas asked. Patrick pointed to the wall. "To the largest portrait." "That's Judge Randolph Fairchild," he said, his voice shaking. "Founder of this firm." Douglas followed his finger, looked at the portrait, then at the old man. "No," he whispered. Judge Fairchild spoke softly. "Today I took the bus. I wanted to see how people behave when no one important is watching." He looked at me. This man gave up his seat for me. Stood for 30 minutes holding that bag, so I could sit. The lobby breathed as one. He didn't know who I was. The judge continued. Didn't care. He saw an old man who needed help. Then his gaze locked onto Douglas. And then I came here and watched his son treat him like garbage. Douglas's mouth opened. Closed. "You're not sorry you insulted me," Judge Fairchild said. "You're sorry you got caught." Patrick turned to Douglas, voice like ice. "My office. Now." "I'm coming too," the judge said. The elevator doors opened. Judge Fairchild looked at me. "Mr. Coleman, you're coming as well." I nodded, numb. As the doors closed, I realized the truth. The shabby old man on the bus was the most powerful person in the building, and he had seen everything. The elevator doors sealed shut with a soft hiss that felt louder than any slam. The hum of ascent filled the narrow space, a low mechanical growl that pressed against my chest. Douglas stood in the corner, arms folded tightly across himself, staring at the floor as if it might open up and swallow him whole. His face had lost all color. The man who had moments ago barked orders in a marble lobby now looked small, brittle, like a boy caught doing something unforgivable. Patrick Westfield stood near the control panel, spine rigid, jaw locked. Judge Fairchild remained calm at the center of it all, hands folded in front of him, eyes forward. He didn't need to raise his voice. He didn't need to threaten. Authority clung to him the way gravity clings to the earth, quiet, unavoidable. I stood near the doors, still holding the paper bag. The sandwich inside had cooled by now. It felt absurd that I was still carrying it, that something so ordinary had followed me into this moment. My hand shook slightly. I didn't know what to expect. I only knew that whatever happened next would decide more than just the fate of a house. The numbers climbed. 10, 15, 20. No one spoke. When the elevator chimed at 28, the sound sliced cleanly through the silence. The doors slid open, revealing Patrick Westfield's corner office. Floor-to-ceiling windows, dark wood panels, leather chairs arranged with deliberate precision. The city sprawled beneath us, distant and indifferent. We stepped inside. Patrick gestured toward the seating area, then waited until Judge Fairchild had taken a chair before sitting himself. Douglas hesitated, then lowered himself into the farthest seat, his movements stiff, unnatural. I remained standing for a moment, unsure of my place, until the judge nodded toward a chair near the door. "Please, Mr. Coleman," he said. "Sit." I obeyed. Patrick cleared his throat. "Your Honor, on behalf of Commonwealth Law Firm, I sincerely apologize for what you witnessed today." Judge Fairchild raised a hand gently. "Tell me about the papers," he said. Patrick turned toward Douglas. "Give them to me." Douglas's fingers fumbled with the folder as he passed it over. Patrick opened it, scanned the contents, and watched his expression change. The color drained from his face slowly, like ink bleeding out of paper. "This is a property transfer and waiver agreement," Patrick said, disbelief creeping into his voice. He looked up at Douglas. "You wanted your father to sign away any claim to his home." Douglas said nothing. Judge Fairchild leaned forward slightly. "Let's establish the facts," he said. His gaze shifted to me. "Mr. Coleman, you purchased the property at 47 Dorchester Avenue in the year 2000. Is that correct?" "Yes, sir." "What was the purchase price?" $180,000. "And the down payment?" $36,000. "How did you raise that money?" The memories pressed hard against my throat. "I sold my truck. Borrowed from coworkers. Worked 3 jobs for 6 months." Judge Fairchild nodded. "And the mortgage payments?" $647 a month. For 25 years. "Did you ever miss one?" "No, sir." He turned to Patrick. "All payments made by Jack Coleman. The deed placed in his son's name for convenience." Patrick's jaw tightened. "Yes, Your Honor." Judge Fairchild looked back at Douglas. "And today you offered him $15,000. Douglas's voice was barely audible. "Yes. For a house currently valued at over $400,000. Silence thickened the room. Patrick leaned back, eyes hard. "Douglas, in all my years practicing law, I have never seen anything more disgraceful." Douglas looked up, panic breaking through his composure. "Mr. Westfield, I can explain." "You're fired," Patrick said. The words hit like a gavel. Effective immediately, Patrick continued. "Clean out your desk by tomorrow morning." Douglas's mouth opened. Closed. He looked at me then, really looked at me, for the first time that day. "Dad, just go," I said, my voice cracking. "Please." He stood on shaking legs and walked to the door. He paused, hand hovering over the handle, but whatever he might have said died there. The door closed softly behind him. Judge Fairchild exhaled, a slow, controlled breath. "I want the Massachusetts Bar Association informed." Patrick nodded. "Already drafting the report, Your Honor." The judge turned to me. "Mr. Coleman, I'm arranging for one of our best real estate attorneys to represent you. Pro bono." I felt my eyes burn. "I don't know how to thank you." "You already did," he said gently. "On that bus." Patrick stepped forward. "The firm will cover all legal expenses. Every filing. Every hearing." I nodded, words failing me. Judge Fairchild stood. "Would you join me for dinner?" I blinked. "Dinner? My treat," he said with a faint smile. "I know a place nearby. Nothing fancy. I'd be honored." The elevator ride down felt different. Lighter, somehow. When the doors opened into the lobby, the crowd parted instinctively. No one spoke. Outside, the cold air hit my face, sharp and clean. Judge Fairchild finished the sandwich as we walked. "You know," he said, "I've been a judge for 43 years. I've seen power, greed, cruelty. But real character is rare." He stopped at a trash can and crumpled a paper bag. "That kind doesn't need witnesses." 3 weeks later, I stood on the front porch of my house. My house. In my hands was a new deed, my name printed cleanly across the top. Jack Coleman, sole owner. The lawyers had handled everything. Douglas was suspended. Investigations followed. A letter arrived a week later. 5 pages. Apologies. Regret. The boy I remembered hiding inside the man he'd become. I haven't answered yet. Judge Fairchild and I have dinner every Friday now. Meatloaf. Coffee. Quiet conversations. You saved my life, I told him once. He shook his head. No, Jack. You saved mine first. The house still sags a little. The paint still peels. But it's mine. And I learned something I'll never forget. Kindness is never wasted. Dignity is never negotiable. And sometimes, the smallest seat on a bus is where judgment truly begins.